What you will notice though when stepping into the room is that everything in here is decorated to the 1920s. At our last renovation, management felt it necessary to keep our permanent guests comfortable, and anybody else's comfort's entirely beside the point. So step back nearly 100 years. Now I will say none of this is the original furniture to the room. At that last renovation, they actually had a hard time getting the door open. The room had effectively sealed itself off. So you gotta figure, you're probably getting like some mold mildew, stuff like that. So they did have to replace everything, but everything in here is either from the 1920s or specifically designed to match the style, excuse me. Got the 1920s air conditioning up here. That's what the guests would have had until 1953 when the Reed House joined some of the first few hotels to offer its guests central air conditioning in the rooms. This one's really cool too, because I'd never seen a phone before where the dial was separate from the cradle. But they were able to build it into the table even then. Brass finish, marble top. And this little switch right here, you pick up the receiver, flip that, and you could have either housekeeping or room service up in about 5 minutes or so. Not quite that good now. At the back's an engineer's drawing of what they wanted the hotel to look like. So they did a pretty good job. It's what they were going for, what they got. And we are, of course, non-smoking these days. So purely decorative, but we do have the period-appropriate ashtray as well. And then stepping back into the bedroom, there is one feature I always point out, because in the daytime people spot it like that. But if you look close at the window here, you'll notice bars up. Back in the 1920s, there was a train station right across the street. People on the lower levels of the hotel started developing this nasty habit of hopping out the window, catching the train and taking off before they got their bills paid. So the hotel came in and put bars on all the windows on the lower levels. Didn't have anything to do with keeping people out, to keep the guests in. Fire code came along not long afterwards, said you can't do that, they had to take them down. Somehow though, at least for a little while, these got left up. So in 1931, big famous gangster of the time, Al Capone was on his way from Chicago to Atlanta to stand trial for tax evasion. Because you know, it's all they can make stick. And at the time, the only way to transport a criminal is in the back of an armored car and with a couple guards on a road trip. Well, he got to Chattanooga, pulled up to the Reed House. Typically in that kind of situation, you find a room somewhere in the basement, chuck the criminal in there. But Al Capone, as y'all well know, was not your average criminal. He didn't want to go in the basement, he wanted a room. They said, well, 311 still got the bars on the window, put him in there. So Al Capone stayed in here as well. Got his mugshot up there on the wall for you. And we do like to think that management at the time might have enjoyed the irony of putting a murderer in a room where a murder had been committed. So that takes us back around to roughly about 1928. Young, fairly newly married couple, Mr. and Miss Netherly, are on their way to town, planning on staying for about a week and a half, something like that, as Mr. Netherly is looking to see what kind of business he can pick up. Well, they get to the Reed House, book into 311. But the stay starts to get extended. A little bit longer, a little bit longer, a little bit longer, a little bit longer, a little longer. He's not having the best of luck business-wise, Mr. Netherly. Some business deals fall through. Some people double-cross him. And eventually he hits this rut where pretty much anything that can go wrong business-wise does. So after a while, his board of directors up in Chicago, they call him up. Like, we need you to come up here. Write this out for us. Explain to us what's going wrong. Why isn't this working? You might even have to travel back and forth some. Well, of course, that's a major undertaking at the time. And he didn't want his young wife, Annalisa, to have to deal with all that. So he told her, he said, all right, honey, here's a little bit of cash. I'll settle up the bill downstairs. Stay here. Take care of yourself. This is pretty much what the room would have looked like at the time. I mean, the TV's only at its experimental stage, so at most she might have had a radio to listen to. Maybe somebody's bringing her a newspaper to the door once a day, something like that. There's a library a couple blocks over, don't know how good it was at the time, or even if she was interested. It's the middle of Prohibition, bars on the windows. She starts getting bored after a while. Heads back down to the lobby and finds her way back to our billiards room. Of course, at that time is where a lot of young men hang out in billiards rooms, and she's a rather lovely looking girl herself. Well, she ends up meeting somebody. Chemistry starts up, sparks start to fly, she brings them up here. Well, a lot of these guys are also businessmen. They're not planning on staying in town for very long. So she goes back down, and back up, and back down, and back up, and back down, and this becomes a bit of a habit for her. Some people say she charged for her services. Some say she didn't. I don't know. I started at least a year after that. But as these businessmen are traveling town to town, city to city, bumping into other businessmen, finding out, oh, hey, you're going to Chattanooga. You need to go to the Reed House. Beautiful young girl down there named Annalisa. She'll make sure you have a nice time. A fat pocketbook. You're definitely going to have fun with Annalisa. Well, the story keeps going, town to town, city to city, and it makes its way up to Chicago. And Mr. Netherly finds out. And naturally, he's none too happy. First chance he gets, he makes a beeline straight down here, marches through the front door, straight up to the room, and beats a door open. And Annalisa's not alone. He grabs a guy up, takes him out to the hallway, beats a tar out of him, leaves him laying there dead or alive, who knows, who cares. Comes back in here, snatches up Annalisa, drags her into the bathroom, throws her down into the bathtub, and takes out the quickest, easiest weapon for the man at the time, his straight razor. Gives her a really close shave. When housekeeping found it, they had a mess to clean up. But at the time, Chattanooga wasn't nearly this big. And being a small southern town, the government's a lot less nosy into your personal business. And Mr. Netherly knows how to grease a few palms. So the authorities effectively say, you know what? Your wife was probably working on the side, and clearly y'all were having some problems. If that's how you felt like you needed to take care of it, then you did what you needed to do. And he gets away with it. You're not going to find any police reports or anything like that. The hotel didn't want a scandal. So they came in, cleaned everything up, kept their mouths shut, and left the room in circulation. Well, it didn't take them terribly long before they started noticing that people getting booked into the room. 3, 4, 5 hours later, they're back downstairs at the front desk going, you gotta give me another room. If you can't give me another room, give me my money back. If you can't give me my money back, we gotta do something. I need out of there. I'm getting this jittery, shaky feeling. I feel this pressure. Somebody's watching me. Several people said they were sitting on the bed, felt like somebody sat down next to them. So a few young men managed to kind of make it through the night, but then they said they came in the morning, they're getting ready, when all of a sudden this ghostly image of a beautiful young lady in a bloody dress appeared behind them. And when they turned around, she was gone. So after enough of that, the hotel had to take the room out of circulation. They're just having way too many issues with it. But over time, rumors begin to spread, curiosity starts to peak, people start coming in, asking questions, and wondering what would happen if they stayed in the room. So eventually the hotel did decide to, once in a while, open the room up to be booked on request. And in their sense of humor, management set the price at $666.66. This past October, they opened up Saturday and Sunday nights. We were booked. Halloween, they flipped it upside down, $9.99.99. We were booked. I'm going to tell you too, I was here Halloween night, worked a 3 to 11 shift, but when somebody's staying in the room, obviously we can't show it like this. So I'm busy downstairs doing stuff. Nobody's coming to me going, hey, that's them over there. Don't work most Sundays, and until fairly recently wasn't coming in until noon on Mondays. So I wasn't here when they checked out. But you talk to people downstairs, because it's who I heard from when I came in the Monday after Halloween. Evidently, a couple comes into the hotel. Totally normal looking, nothing odd about them, aside from spending over $1,000 with tax remaining on TV. But, and I'm sure I saw them myself at some point, nothing really stood out about them. But evidently at some point after I left at 11, they come up to the room. She steps out for a few minutes, comes back, the room is dark. He's on the floor shaking, freaking out, acting like he's either getting attacked or possessed, one of the two. She runs downstairs for help. Our manager at Bridgman's Chop House at the time, Lisa, she was one of the first ones to come up and try to help. She told me, she said, I've been in this business a long time. I know what it looks like when somebody's had a few too many at the bar. This wasn't it. Said his wife was knelt down next to him, had water splashing it on him, trying to wake him up. He's laying there going, I can feel her tears. I can feel her tears. Before their night was done, they were downstairs insisting on another room. We don't vouch for Annalisa's behavior. You want to spend over $1,000 with tax and not make it through the night? That's on you. The hotel has learned to hold a room in reserve when people are staying in here. We'll shift you over at no extra cost, but you ain't getting a discount either. So give me 1 second, they'll give me a call. Go for lobby. I'm on one right now. So then the Halloween before that, 2019, we had a couple come in. I'm sorry? I'm on a tour right now. Can you add them to the list and I'll give them a call when I get back down? What's going on? You didn't hear me. Oh, weird. Anyway, so like I said, a couple comes in last Halloween, and back in December I got to give a tour to somebody who knew them, found out more than I knew before. Evidently, anytime he was in the room by himself, he kept finding drawers randomly opened up. Well, he closed them back. She come in, it wouldn't happen. But if she stepped out again, these drawers are suddenly opened up. He closed them back. Well, both of them were getting those same weird vibes people used to get when the room was in circulation. They're still pretty common now. But they did last long enough, they started that they got in the bed for the night, and not long after they did, they started feeling like somebody was shaking the bed with them in it. They didn't even get another room, they left the hotel. They were done, gone, out. Back in February, I was giving a tour to a group, a little bit larger than this, probably about 8 or 10 people in it, but there was a lady in there who didn't say anything the whole time until we were on our way out. She looked at me and she said, you know, about 6 years ago, my husband and I stayed in the room. I said, really? Did you experience anything? She said about 1 o'clock in the morning or so, she wakes up. And in the corner of there, she sees this woman in a white dress standing there staring at her. I asked her, I was like, what did you do? Did you experience, what happened? She said, well, I tried to ignore it, go back to sleep. She said, but about 2 hours later, my husband wakes up screaming. That same figure was standing there staring at him over the side of the bed. I asked her again, I was like, what'd you do? Did you get another room? Did you leave? She said, no, we stuck it out. We stayed in the room. So I guess for them, that 666 anchored them in place. The way you see everything in the room is how we leave it. We do leave lights on, because giving tours, you won't be coming in flipping switches, that kind of thing. Well, up until only about 7, 8 weeks ago or so, we only had 2 of us on staff that were doing any kind of bell work, tours, all that kind of stuff. It was 2, that was it for a good 9 months. Both of us have given tours of the room, and both of us have talked with each other and said, we've come in here and the room's been different. Come in more than one occasion and either one or both of the lights have been turned out in the bathroom. We don't turn them off. I've come in before one of these lights has been turned off. There's been a few times I've also come in and the closet door's been open. And I mean, I've invited everybody from the first time on, test it for yourself. This thing doesn't just randomly pop open. About 7 weeks or so ago, I was giving a tour and get done. As we walk out, this is what I saw when we left the room. Well, I got back downstairs, called the next group. We come walking up. That chair right there was turned up against that table, and the bench for the vanity was in the middle of the bathroom floor. The following Wednesday, lady in the group, we're heading out. She says, right about the time I got a picture of the bathtub, I felt something kind of itchy on the back of my neck. I said, really? Well, it's not terribly uncommon, that kind of hair on the back of the neck feeling, that pressure, that kind of thing. So I didn't think much about it. But as we head back downstairs, and I say we, honestly, I head back down. I think she went back to her room, but regardless, about half an hour later, she comes back to the front desk. Her husband saw the back of her neck, grabbed her phone, snapped a picture, and she showed it to me. She had scratch marks on the back of her neck. I told her, I said, I have given way more tours than I could ever possibly count. I hope you know you're going to be a story from here on, because I have never seen that before. When we had a working radio in the room, several people said it didn't matter what station they tried to put it on. Rock, pop, easy listening, country. Eventually it would start to go staticky and scratchy. They'd start hearing 1920s dance music. This one's our working phone for the room. I love the fact they got a rotary to work in here. But several people have said it'll randomly start ringing in the middle of the night. Pick it up, there's nobody there, hang up, starts ringing again. And then if you get online, look up like Channel 9, Chattanooga, Reed House, that kind of thing. Our local ABC affiliate interviewed a couple that stayed in here a few years ago. Totally skeptical. We don't believe in ghosts, we don't believe in any of that kind of thing, yada, yada, yada. They weren't skeptical when they checked out. Like I said, I used to give a lot more examples of plenty of stuff that's happened in here. We've had tons of stuff, but the front desk started telling me my tours were getting too long. So I had to start cherry picking the best ones. But, don't know if it sounds like we're in a group right here, so might need y'all kind of, before they just suddenly pour in, otherwise, because we've got a couple other people too. I don't know if they're trying to jump ahead or what. But, so, if we can, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good job.
Was that somebody else's room? Or do you want to?